And now, our feature presentation.
You are watching a master at work.
Hello, everybody! What's up, nation? Raf in the building. Rafael Chasinas Noes, el Capitán Rafucho, and welcome to a special post-draft episode of Tim and Black Experience. Because, man, what can I tell you? The NFL Draft 2024 on Detroit, Michigan was absolutely bananas. And right now, I had two special guests coming back to back because right now they are part of the Undroppables, which is Las Vegas Raiders. And I just had the opportunity to have a conversation again. So, ladies and gentlemen, I had to introduce to you once again to Big C, Biggs, and Raider Damus. So how's it going, everybody? So welcome. And right now, how you guys feeling after the draft?
Elated.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired. Once we get done here, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go drink myself to sleep. In the immortal words, and with all apologies to the legend bluesman George and Supreme Court Justice George Thorogood Marshall, I'm gonna go have a bourbon, one shot, and another bourbon.
Yeah, that's exactly. So and right now, this is gonna be like so tired, but this is like one of those days that we're gonna talk about for the post draft, and then boom, what you're talking about. So right now, here it is, our first topic that we're talking about. So, ladies and gentlemen, there it is. So at the first round, we just got Brock Bowers, a power caliber tight end from Georgia Bulldogs. Now, a lot of things people don't know about this because remember the last time in 2023, we just drafted Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. And now we just got back-to-back tight end because I got to tell you, Brock Bowers, he has a power caliber tight end. He's very strong, great defense, great technique. And of course, it's very similar to George Kittle, but boy, that kid has a lot of talent to do. And this is see for the stats right now. So let's shall we for the stats. They say over 2023, he has 6 touchdowns, 10 games, and of course, more than 700 yards. And let's see what they got right now. So let's see. So a lot of teams prefer right now because he has a lot of more production and more athleticism to another college players. So they just have an overall draft score, which is 96, which is totally insane for me. I mean, wow, what can I tell about it? Because can you imagine about for Michael Mayer along with Brock Bowers? I mean, that could be explosive, and there's a lot of production. And I will tell you for this, the tight end room for the Raiders is going to be fully loaded. So right now, let's just start with Biggs and Raider tell us about for Brock Bowers, a tight end from Georgia.
Well, first of all, he's a tight end from Napa. Shout out NorCal. I have to say this in every podcast. I used to run a pizza joint in Napa, right across the street from Napa High School, and we made pizza for the football team, and Brock Bowers ate my pizza, probably where he got his power up. I'm going to leave everything to Raider Damus, but I'm going to say this. The people who are criticizing the pick and saying that we took Brock Bowers as a tight end and took Michael Mayer as a tight end are getting it all wrong. Brock Bowers should not be looked at as a tight end. Brock Bowers should be looked at in the wide receiver group because his numbers as a tight end are off the charts, and they're competitive over the course of his entire 3-year career at Georgia with the best wide receivers in this 2024 class. He's right up there with Odunze, Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr. He's better in some stats, in some analytics than some of those guys. We went over this on the Uncovered yesterday, and Raider Damas had quite a lot to say, so I'm going to leave it to him.
Well, the first thing I want to say is Capitán Rafucho brought up that he's going to be in the same tight end room as Michael Mayer. The interesting thing is that Brock Bowers won the John Mackey Award for the best collegiate tight end on 2 separate occasions, 2 years in a row, and he's the first person ever to win it twice. Both times he did so, the runner-up for best tight end was Michael Mayer. So in essence, the Raiders have got the 2 best collegiate tight ends of the past 5 years on the same pro team, which is pretty neat. But Brock Bowers he's a unicorn. He's not just a tight end. He split time between H-back, tight end, and slot receiver at Georgia. His 2019 freshman year was basically the best year that any tight end in college history has ever had. Brock Bowers is by far collegiate tight end prospect the NFL has ever seen. And that's not excluding anybody at all. It's better than Vernon Davis. He's better than Kyle Pitts. He's better than anybody. The Raiders just drafted the best college tight end of all freaking time. Brock Bowers he's an absolute monster. His production is 42% of his yards come after the catch. That's almost twice as good as any of the wide receivers you found in this class or any other class. Once he gets the ball in his hands, he's unstoppable. He's got fantastic hands. He can catch the ball in triple, double coverage, whatever you want to do. He's an offensive weapon in every sense of the word. Do not limit this man to the TE position. He does absolutely everything. He's a above average blocker. He's an all-world receiver. When he has a nose for the end zone like you wouldn't believe. But this guy is off the charts amazing in every sense of the word.
And he's also he looks like a nerd, which is the best part about him. If you see him in street clothes, you wouldn't look twice at him and think that guy's an NFL player, but he happens to be an historic athlete. And I think they need to create a position group called Big Slot. That way you can fit in guys like Johnny Wilson. Darren Waller would have fit into that. You got Dalton Kincaid over in Buffalo. It's a different thing than tight end. Michael Mayer's a tight end. He blocks, he plays inline, and he makes catches. Brock Bowers does all that, but he lines up as a big slot wide receiver, and it's just going to create problems for the rest of the league.
Exactly. But I think because we just got the best tight end in the college football, because he just earned with 2 national championships along with Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, he's one of the most well-rounded tight end prospects to ever gonna to enter at the NFL. Because as a blocker, he might be like a strong pound by pound that you ever found, because there's a versatility. It'll also be like a light pre-snap movement piece, but as a defense, it must account for where it's all the times, but all the other formation. But there's very similar set about for Brock Bowers and George Kittle. But I think that the reason that we're just talking about for George Kittle or Brock Bowers, I mean, Kittle is more consistent blocker in the game, but Bowers is just like more than juice after the catch, because they really have both guys separately for the frames. But I think this is gonna be like he was born in Napa, California, because he was establishing himself as one of the most unique and prolific playmakers. I mean, there's no lie about it, because it's very crucial piece for the Dogs attack. We're gonna well display for this fall for the junior season. And I think it could be like the next George Kittle, but I think that's going to fit everything that it goes to try to maximize at the defense. But I got to tell you, he's one of the top 10 prospectors, but I think it is like a prospect in the mold, because there's a lot of great inspiration, because as long as they're going to have it at this one, I mean, it's open enough for us, ended up for a big career. I mean, there's like plenty of the top end drafted a sense at that point. I mean, he was very compared to George Kittle, but he doesn't have like the size, the ability, but he is a monster. Even though he has a lot of competition, but those that I can tell you about this, he's a strong competition against Travis Kelce, because whatever this happened about Travis Kelce, I mean, there's a lot of competition and it's getting on.
Well, we scared the Chiefs into getting the safety from Washington State, so that's they're going to probably be trying to cover him.
The problem that NFL players, the NFL teams, are going to have with Brock Bowers is that somebody at his position, which is tight end or split out, is either going to be guarded by their third best cornerback or the outside linebacker on that side. None of those people in the NFL at those positions are going to be able to guard Brock Bowers effectively. None of them. You're going to have to bring safety down, or put your best corner on him. And to do that, you're going to have to leave one of the Raiders' top wide receivers covered by somebody who's lesser. So Brock Bowers is a matchup nightmare all around. Now, last September 23, I tweeted out that this is a historically great quarterback class. There's going to be a whole bunch of quarterbacks going in the top 10, but the best and most talented player to be drafted in 2024 is going to be Brock Bowers, and it's not going to be particularly close. I said that back then, and I stand by it now.
Let me point out 2 things real quick. The first, him being from Napa, he grew up a Raiders fan, which totally fits. He's a Raider, and his high school was 2 miles away from Silverado Middle School, where the Raiders used to have training camp every year before they unceremoniously moved to Las Vegas and ditched Napa, California. The other thing I wanted to point out is let's not forget that this guy, who some people had as high as the third best player on their draft boards, fell to us at the 13th pick. He should have been the 4th pick in the draft, the 5th pick in the draft, the 6th pick in the draft, and instead he fell right into Tom Telesco's waiting lap, and now it's off the chain. Let's fucking go.
Absolutely.
I mean, I guarantee about it. I mean, that was just like one of the best, because I really thought, because one of my options is gonna be between of Cooper to John, but I guarantee, because at the first reaction, and they didn't have like this one, because someone at this point they had about for the pig, but I guarantee that some point they just had a lot of grace to do, because he's right there to say, hey, I'm right here, because right now I'm ready to working it out, and then we just wanted to pulling it out. So I will tell for this. I will say that for the Brock Bowers draft, I was saying like an A, but maybe like an A plus, because that was like very powerful. So what did I grade about for Brock Bowers or about for the draft grade?
A plus.
A plus. I mean, how many times in the history of us watching the Raiders drafts have we seen the Raiders pass up on a guy who turned out to be a generational talent because we reached for a need pick? We've seen it over and over and over again. Brock Bowers is 100% a generational talent. We did not pass him up. He's a Raider now. God bless us, everyone. A plus.
Yeah. And the other thing, the Raiders told us, I mean, all of Raider Nation, all of the cloud, everything, all the scuttlebutt out there was that the Raiders were looking for a quarterback, that AOC is not the guy. But the Raiders told you everything that you need to know with that Brock Bowers pick. AOC is the guy. AOC is going to be the one that gets it done, and they have every confidence in the world that he's going to be able to win that quarterback job, and they didn't need to go out of the building to go get somebody. They didn't need to jump up and get somebody else that we talked about for weeks and weeks and weeks. Tom Telesco told us everything that we need to know. Build the team around Aiden O'Connell.
There you go right now.
And going with that and the whole building around Aiden O'Connell thing, you need to protect Aiden O'Connell. Our next pick, the second round pick, does that. But also I want to point out that Brock Bowers was a finalist for the best offensive lineman category 2 years running, even though he was a tight end. He's a fantastic pass blocker. He's a great blocker overall. He will help Aiden O'Connell in a variety of ways.
Yep. There you go right now. There you go. So right now, let's see for the comments right now. That is see. Daniel Barry, how's it going? Hey, everyone. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. Also, we just got Ray Love in the building. How's it going, Ray Love? Also, he's just getting like a grade, which is Ray Love A+, which is, I totally agree about that. So right now, I have another special guest that is coming up from backstage. I know you guys remember this because he's one of my great brothers, also one of my members. Well, the members of the Raiders War Order, because I just love the guy. And this man is something very special because he knows about for the point of view for the Raiders. So I just wanted to tell you right now, here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Afakasi Raiders. So salute to you.
What's going on, gang? Rafa, thank you for having me on. Biggs, Raider Damus, everyone in the chat, happy draft weekend. So I'm sorry, did you just say he was a finalist for being for the best lineman at the collegiate level?
Yes, he was. 2 years
That's to
in a
go
row
on top of him being a playmaker? What?
Yes. I mean,
I
anything you can believe about.
I was like,
anything that seems too hard to believe about him is actually true.
Wow. I'm really starting to come around to the Brock Bowers pick more. The more I look into it, because I got to be honest, when I reacted to it, I was probably like a lot of people in the Raider Nation. We were just like, what? Like, we drafted a tight end because, I don't do that much research on college players leading up to the draft, especially at a position I didn't think we needed. We drafted Michael Mayer last year. But
as a tight end, he's the 4th best wide receiver that was on the board.
I know. Like I said, the more, I was shocked when we picked him, but the more I look into it, the more I'm not just liking it, I'm loving it.
I mean, I watch a lot of college football. I watch a lot of SEC, Southeastern Conference football in particular. Brock Bowers has been the best player in the SEC, the best college conference for 4 years in a row. He's no joke. This man is amazing.
As a freshman, we watched him and went, I can't wait for him to get into my dynasty drafts. Like
I never thought he'd even fall to the Raiders, so he was like was a bridge too far, too much to hope for me, because I had him number 1 on my board of overall draft prospects. I thought he was the best player in the draft, period, regardless of position.
Bowers, really?
And Bowers, and for him to fall to 13, it's like a dream come true for me.
Yeah, I guess I was just, it was ignorance for me, like to. You know what I mean? React the way I did. Like, I wasn't like completely hating it. It was just like, I just didn't know. It was just like, we drafted Michael Mayer. Why did we take a guy in round 2, which we actually traded up for just to take another tight end? But from accounts, this guy sounds like he is the biz. Wasn't you guys who shared the story about the 2010 draft where in the scout book, it was they end up taking Rolando McClain, but all the scouts were saying, take Rob Gronkowski. He was the best prospect.
That was Raider Damas.
And
I believe it was, yes. And I shared that when I was doing a reaction that like maybe it's the same scenario, but in reverse.
They didn't take Gronk because they already had Zach Miller on the team.
So they didn't make the same mistake they made in 2010 by taking an area of need and taking Rolando McClain.
Right.
I mean, they had Zach Miller on the team, so they didn't feel like they needed a tight end. But good teams don't let a good player stop them from taking an elite player. And Bowers is an elite player. And if you watch the Bears the last couple of years, Luke Getz, he likes to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. He likes to use that as a main weapon of his offense. So it's not like Mayer and Bowers are going to overlap each other and it'd be redundant. They're not. They're 2 different types of players, and you could run 2 tight end sets with them all day long.
And Cole Kmet in that that Luke Getsy offense with Justin Fields, who's a terrible passer, was a top 10 tight end in both of those last 2 years. So lot of good tight end stuff happening.
On the upside as well, it's like surely one of these guys have got to pop at the very least. Surely not both of them are going to flame out, right?
Right.
No, you missed it before you got in here. Raider Damas shared that they're the 2 best tight ends in college football over the last couple of years. 4 or 5 years.
To my point, like surely one of those guys at least one has got to pop.
Yeah.
I'd say Bowers is the better talent, but I'd say Mayer is the more traditional size for a tight end. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're both top 10 tight ends over the next 2 years.
I'd say the other things I like is Trey Taylor and sorry to switch it up. Trey Taylor and who's that linebacker we took? God, his name is
Tommy Eichenberg.
The one, that's it. Eichenberg. That's how you say it.
Tommy.
Yes.
Tommy Eichenberg. He was what MVP in the Rose Bowl a couple of years back, and when I watch his tape, like he even looks kind of like Robert Spillane. He gives me shades of Robert Spillane.
Well,
he's a traditional Raiders middle linebacker.
I was listening to Hondo Carpenter do his podcast about an hour ago, and he said he had a retired NFL scout that had watched a lot of Tommy Eichenberg in high school. And after the Raiders drafted him, he said Hondo said he got a text from that guy and said the Raiders just drafted Jack Lambert 2.0. That's the kind of player that he thinks at least the Raiders are going to get.
Hallelujah. We drafted a linebacker who excelled at linebacker, who produced at linebacker, who plays linebacker.
And Jack Tatum, Ohio State. So
the Raiders have linebackers under contract 2 years from now. I thought they were going to play like a 4-0-7 defense.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, after we just talked about for Brock Bowers, right now let's just move on for the next topic that we always gonna love it about to talking about it. So you gotta check this out, folks. Jackson Power Johnson, a power caliber guard from Oregon Ducks. And I mean, believe it or not, because that was just like a steal pick. And I guarantee, because look at this for the stats right now. So he got the rank and the number 1 as one of the top prospects of the NFL as a center. So right now he has the very score. He's one of the youngest offensive linemen on the draft class, because after the first-time starter, I mean, that man, he's just like a beast. I mean, can you imagine about that? Because after that I just saw from Oregon versus Washington, I mean, combined for bonus, I mean, that guy has a lot of potential to be like at the center, also a right guard. I mean, that kid was tremendous, but also he's a beast, and I cannot deny it. That was just like a big steal pick because they just got one of the toppest prospects of the NFL, and of course with that position. So I just wanted to let you know that Biggs, Reyes, and Afakasi give it a thought about a monster pick, which is Jackson Bowers Johnson from Oregon Ducks.
He won the Remington Trophy, which is awarded to the best center in college football. The Raiders have shown that they like versatile interior linemen. You have Donald Parham, who played center and guard. You have Jackson Powers Johnson now that played center and guard. They just signed Cody Whitehair, who played center and guard. So there's a lot of mobility and versatility on that line. And they showed that protecting Aiden O'Connell, who's not a mobile guy, is the priority in the building. And Jackson Powers Johnson absolutely fits the bill. He can take over for Andre James. They can move him over to the right guard position. Either one of those is going to be totally fine. Cody Whitehair can sub in for Parham, take over for James, sub in for JPJ. I mean, there's so many things that they're going to be able to do, and it'll all play out over the summer. And that was a really, really exciting pick. Again, another one who was drafted 10 spots lower than what his draft rating was. We got him at the 44. He was on that big board at 34. Tom Telesco was taking the best players that were falling to that draft position, and it was a clinic. He put on a clinic in that war room.
Yeah, if Jackson Powers Johnson had gotten anywhere from the mid to late first round, no one would have been criticized for that. He's that good of a player. He was the number one PFF pass blocker as far as rating goes in college football last year at center, with like a 96. And the guy, the next guy the Raiders drafted was also on that list, but we'll get to him. Jackson Powers Johnson allowed exactly one pressure on any pass blocking snaps in college. And no sacks whatsoever the entire time. And that's on like 780 pass blocking snaps. Unlike the guy we took in the first round, as Biggs pointed out, does not look like a football player, looks like a nerd. Jack Sparrows Johnson actually does look like a football player. He's an absolute monster. There was a story that came out about him this week where he was driving along a highway and he saw that a car had gotten in a crash. And there was some ladies who were trying to open the door because there were some people trapped inside. And the police were on their way, but Jackson Powers Johnson got out and he went over to them and they couldn't get the door open. So Jackson Powers Johnson grabbed the door, ripped it off its hinges, threw it to the side, and helped the women get out of the car. That's the kind of guy we're dealing with here. So he's just, when you hear the term country strong, which is someone who just has that unnatural strength that lets them throw around hay bales all day on a ranch, that's the kind of guy we're talking about. He's country strong. He's an absolute beast. He's hilarious. And I think he's going to fit in really, really well.
When we made the pick, my son texted me, "Holy shit, Dad, he looks just like you." No, without the beard but that's like we have the same face.
That's what's up. I like that story. I didn't hear that one. Thank you for sharing that.
Everybody should.
I love the pick. I mean, yeah, it's very refreshing that, like, for the most part, the plan of attack for the draft was take the best player available, not just addressing need or reaching for project guys. You know what I'm saying? Like we had done in yesteryears. And from the consensus, this was the best center in the draft, even better than the guy that was taken before him, I believe, in the first round. And to get a guy in the second round with such a high degree of skill and to produce like what you said, he gave up like what? How many pressures?
One pressure his entire career, no sacks.
One pressure, right? A guy who can possibly push to start immediately at center, but like from the word is that Andre James's job until proven otherwise.
Yeah, when they drafted Jackson Johnson, they called Andre James specifically when they made that pick to tell him he's still their center and that Powers Johnson will be playing guard. So they went out their way to do that.
Yes, so it's still Andre James's job, but like a guy who can should plug in immediately on one of those guard spots, being Dylan Parham, being the other starter, who should be the other starter. So I love that pick. Do you guys do you guys look at Walter Football for your
I do. I mean, his site is absolutely horrible as far as ads and stuff go, but I look at it when I can.
It hasn't changed since I found it in 2009. They have not changed.
It's been that way since 2005 when I started going there. It's absolute cancer, and I hate it. But he's so good at what he does.
They are. They're very good at what they do, and they're very fair when it comes to their grades. They're very unbiased. They gave that pick an A+. So. Of course, you can't grade a pick. For me personally, I don't like grading picks until I see them 3 years down the line. You know,
especially
what I mean?
That's an interior line.
Fair assessment. You know what I'm saying? So, but just from the outside looking in and being kind of new to the player, learning about him, but from what I understand and what I've learned so far, I love it.
I'm pretty confident rating at least these top 2 picks because I've already watched them for 3 years. I watch a ridiculous and unhealthy amount of college football. So most of these kids who are getting picked, I'm very well familiar with, and I'm not shy about rating them.
That's awesome. Yeah, because for me, like I'm a Raider diehard. Admittedly, I don't watch too much college tape, and I don't watch a whole bunch of tape on hundreds of different prospects. For the most part, 90% of them we're not even going to even look at. You know what I mean? I like to wait to see who we do pick, and then I'll go and watch the tape and see what they can do and what their credentials are before I give a fair opinion on. But just from the quick assessment, I like it. I love it.
A while ago, I had the realization in my life that I had followed the high school recruitment of certain players, and then also saw their induction into the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. That's how long I've been following some of these kids. So
you're a DJ, just like me.
I felt really, really old when I realized that. But I love football like I love nothing else, so it don't bother me much.
The only college prospect I followed from the collegiate level all the way to when he was drafted was none other than Khalil Mack. But outside of that, I don't really follow too many. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I come at it from the fantasy space. I'm a Raiders fan first, but I do fantasy content. And so there are a lot of guys that I know. There are still a ton of guys that I don't know. And one of the things that I share with people who watch my shows is that there are guys who do deep dives. I watch them. I do shallow dives, and then I give you the shallowest dive, right? So there are guys that do way more work than I do, and I follow them. And then some people follow me, and they basically get like the shared data from the experts, if you want to say. One of the channels that I love watching is Bootleg Football with Brett Coleman and EJ Snyder. Those guys are absolutely sharp. And I'm sitting there watching their live stream, and they're laughing and getting excited over guys in the 6th round that I've never heard of. They're giving reactions to like the 214th pick that I had no idea even existed. So those are the guys to watch if you want to like really dive into like hardcore prospecting and stuff. And they really liked the Raiders draft. They had nothing negative to say about any of the picks through any of the 7 rounds. It was really fun to watch.
I don't think I saw anybody except Hayden Nass, Pete Prisco give any of the Raiders picks below like a B. And he didn't like Brock Bowers because it wasn't a need, but that he's an absolute clown. I don't listen to that guy, but it's just funny that I'm used to everybody hating the Raiders drafts and be like, well, what are the Raiders doing? But this year the Falcons are getting that treatment, and the Raiders are geniuses, and I'm just proud to wear this hat.
John Gruden would have taken JPJ with the 13th pick, and everybody would have given him a C for the pick, but. Yeah, Tom Telesco waited till the 2nd round, and it's an A+ pick.
See,
the last time there was like a general good review from most people that aren't necessarily Raider content creators or people who follow the Raiders, are just unbiased kind of draft analysts or write articles or whatnot, giving good reviews on the Raiders. The last time I can remember was 2014, and look how that turned out. So
that's what I was thinking. And they were right, too. They were right about that. Mac turned out like, Hall of Fame level. Gabe Jackson was serviceable for a long time. Derek Carr is still playing. There was a lot of guys, Justin Ellis was in that draft, as I believe.
TJ Carey as well.
Yeah, he had a long career as well. There were a lot of guys who were really good pros in that draft. I think this draft is even better.
I hope so. I really do.
I mean, what can I tell him about it? I mean, I will give it like an A+, because he has an NFL frame, above average body, snaps to stat quickness. I mean, he has an efficient lateral shuffle to answer gap shooters, and he plays with a firm base and fewer hands. Also, you're talking about for like the Oregon coaching staff, which about the stockness and dedication for the craft. I mean, he's one of the youngest offensive linemen. I mean, he just emerged like a stand-up center in the past season, but also after filling that guard in the first 2 seasons, he just won the starting center job. And it became like the All-American in school history in the first Pac-12 and a player to return an award, which is a multi-sport athlete growing up. He plays life on the speed and pass protection as a run blocker, also with a natural movement and skills. And also there's like a fun fact, because I just saw for like over for the draft and of course for the film study and the social media. So Jackson Powers Johnson grew up watching a game between Las Vegas Raiders. Well, Raiders, the old one, which is Oakland Raiders versus San Francisco 49ers. So that's one of those reasons that we had 2 incredible players. First, they just got Brock Bowers, which he grew up as a Raider. And then Jackson Powers Johnson, which he grew up as a Raider fan. But I guarantee, because they have 2 incredible monsters. And that leads to the next topic right now. So right now, it's going to be like fun, excited to see what happens. So after we just see like a lot of potential, a lot of great talent that we just drafted in 8 players, do you think that Tom Telesco is just cooking also all because of that? Because right now we're just filling it off with all about the defense. And right now before that, because the draft pick is something like very good, very bad. But I think this year, Tom Telesco didn't screw it up once. Because as a matter of fact, because he's killing it at the draft, cooking something brand new, because they want to invest the best available. They just wanted to invest it about the defense. So I'm not wrong about that. And Tom Telesco, it seems that they just had this eyes to see what potential, what talent do we need it for. So right now we just start with Biggs, Raider Damos, and Alfacasi. So do you think that Tom Telesco is really killing it at the draft with amazing draft players, draft prospects, and of course we had to live it up for the defense?
I think the most important picks in this draft were the first 3 rounds, and I think he did kill it. He got an otherworldly offensive player in Brock Bowers. JPJ has the talent level to step in and be a Pro Bowl offensive lineman. He showed that against competition in the Power 5 in college, and he was the best. And then DJ Glaze, we coined the nickname Donut for him. Donut Glaze is a very high floor right tackle. So he's not going to wow people. He may not ever make a Pro Bowl, but he's going to be starting caliber for whatever his career is. With the back end of the draft, the final 4 or 5 picks, whatever we had, with maybe the possible exception of Tommy Eichenberg, we've seen guys who were like big tackle machines, like Evan Weaver from Cal, led the NCAA in tackles from the middle linebacker position. They've come in and not really stuck. I don't see that from Tommy Eichenberg, but it's a non-zero chance that he just doesn't. He's too slow, that kind of thing. The other guys aren't necessarily projects, but remember, this is the NFL draft. 70% of people that are drafted don't ever pan out. While I like the cornerbacks that we took, I think that they fit the mold of what we were looking for and what we lost in Amik Robertson. I like the safeties that we got. Ed Reed Bloodlines is like pretty strong. And I like Dylan Lobb from New Hampshire. I think that was a fantastic pick. He's a receiving back. He had over 1,200 yards production at New Hampshire, 700 yards receiving. He's a route runner. He's a good blocker in the passing game. He's going to fit that Amir Abdullah role perfectly. I had guys on my board that are that fit that mold, but we're a little bit better, like Will Shipley that went to Philadelphia. And he might wind up being a special teamer and practice squad guy, but I like him a lot. I think when you really look at it, the first 4 picks are going to be starters. The rest of them have the potential to be that and be steals in the 6th and 7th round. But realistically speaking, the chances of that are slimmer than with the top of the draft. That said, for Tom Telesco to put us in position to have those guys at the back end of the draft pan out in need positions, fantastic. He did a great job. I would give the entire draft an A, and Tom Telesco won me over. Let's just put it that way.
Can I ask you, Biggs? When you say the top 4 rounds picks that we chose, you said that you think they're going to be starters. Are you talking about day 1 starters?
That I think Eichenberg can step in and be a run-stopping linebacker on day 1. I think DJ Glaze might take a little bit more time, but Jackson Powers Johnson and Brock Bowers can start right away, and they can be all right. Field day 1.
So not day 1 starters, but starters down the line. The guys outside of Brock Bowers and Jackson Powers Johnson. That's what you mean, right?
And Tommy Eichenberg too. I think he. Okay. I don't think he'll be the starting linebacker, but to spell Robert Spillane, I think he can do that in game 1.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I agree. As far as Telesco's draft this time goes, and what I think of him, the Raiders have had such a history, a long and storied history of very poor drafting, that all Telesco had to do to be amazing was not make any obvious fuck-ups and not any ridiculous overreaches. And he didn't. I mean, we can say DJ Glaze was overdrafted, but what, maybe by half a round? Right. I mean, the rest of the guys went several picks to several rounds later than they ought to have. Tom Telesco was searching for one thing and one thing only in this draft, and that was value. And he got it at just about every pick. I'm extremely happy with all the picks and all the players that he got. Sometimes you have to separate the player from the pick. Sometimes you say, I really like this guy, but you could have had him around later. Sure, but you also could have picked a lot of the guys Tom Telesco picked 3 rounds before you got them, and nobody would have said anything. It's this particular draft was so full of guys that I saw mocked to the Raiders on a regular basis, except for Bowers, obviously. It's not even funny. I mean, a lot of people had Dylan Labe mocked to the Raiders. A lot of people had Tommy Eichenberg mocked to the Raiders. So often we see Raider drafts where they draft who or what or when did we draft that guy? And it's like, I've never heard of him, or I didn't have him mocked to the Raiders, and nobody did. Because nobody dumb enough to do that. Wood. Oh my God. Over and over and over and over again. And you draft guys who either don't belong in the NFL or don't belong where they were drafted or are obvious flameouts. In this draft, Tom Telesco got a bunch of guys who, if any of them don't make this team, I will be surprised. Every draft pick last year made the team, and I would be shocked if anyone from this class didn't make the team. Tom Telesco has proven that he can get elite talent in free agency, as far as Christian Wilkins, and he can get elite talent in the draft. So I'm very happy with what he's done. And I was pretty, reticent to say he's great because, I saw what he did with the Chargers, putting together this awesome team on paper who always folded in when the going got tough, a bunch of, mashing a bunch of superstars together and hoping it would work. But, the Chargers coaching staff was responsible for putting those guys together and making it work, and they didn't because the coaching staff was ass. This coaching staff, I trust to take this group of guys and make it work.
The other thing, and you talk about Tom Telesco and his history with the Chargers, probably the biggest star of the Tom Telesco era in San Diego / LA was an undrafted, undersized, slow running back, which is from a small school, which is exactly what Dylan Laube is. He fits the Austin Eckler vibe completely. He's got comps to Chase Edmonds, James White, Danny Woodhead, and Austin Eckler. And if you would say that you didn't want any of those guys to be your third down running back, you'd be crazy. They are all legit, and he's going to fit that bill. We had Raider Damas and I did mock drafts on our show, and Tommy Eichenberg, I remember us taking in the second round. We took Dylan Lobb at least once to get guys that we actually saw and went, I like that guy. Was crazy. Brock Bowers, I wouldn't have ever dreamed that we were going to do it. He wasn't even a thought.
I thought he was going the top 7 for sure. I didn't even dare to dream that he'd be a Raider.
I haven't heard as much hype for a tight end prospect, and maybe it's just because I'm a Raider fan and we chose him, but like I cannot remember the last time I've heard this much hype for a prospect at the tight end spot. Can you guys?
Yes, Kyle Pitts a few years ago, the hype was similar to this, but overall, Brock Bowers is a much better tight end than Kyle Pitts was. Kyle Pitts is just faster in a straight line, but Brock Bowers is twice the tight end that Kyle Pitts was. And the reason you haven't heard this much hype for a tight end is because there hasn't been, because Brock Bowers is statistically the best college tight end of all time.
Right. I think Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates had they were known to be stars coming into the league. Everybody knew that they were going to make immediate impacts. I think that Brock Bowers is going to wind up being better than them. He's certainly more athletic and more talented. He's a better pass catcher. He's not going to be asked to block as much. Last season in the fantasy space, Dalton Kincaid had as much hype as close to as much hype as Brock Bowers. But like Raider Dama said, for the last 3 years, everybody has been on pins and needles waiting for Brock Bowers after his freshman season to get into the NFL, and we're the ones that got him.
His freshman season was so just supernaturally good. I mean, it's like I remember watching Amari Cooper's freshman season in Alabama, looking at him just dominate the SEC, be like, oh man, I hope he's going to be a Raider in a few years. Turns out he was briefly, but I had the exact same feeling watching Brock Bowers. Hopefully he'll be a Raider for a lot longer than Amari Cooper was.
And Brock Bowers helped Zamir White win a ring. So
he certainly did.
A lot more consistent. Like Amari Cooper, when he was on, he would be one of the best wide receivers in the league for a couple of weeks, and then he would disappear for like 2 or 3 weeks. So
I think that was because of Pac-Man Jones. I think when Pac-Man slammed Amari Cooper's head into the ground, I think that did a lot of damage to Cooper, and he never recovered.
Right, but whatever it might be, and you kind of making me kind of remember that. Like I completely forgot about it.
That was awful.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, back to what your question, Rafa, since it's my turn. Yes. Look, I think I have a really good feeling about this draft class. Something I haven't had probably collectively overall. Not just I like this pick, but I don't like that pick. For the most part, I really like what he's done, and I haven't felt this way since 2014. And look how 2014 turned out. However, I'm going to say, look, I'm going to pump the brakes on calling it that he's saying that he's cooking, because we got to wait to see how it all shakes out. You know what I mean? Like to your point, what you said, Red Domes, it looks good on paper. It does look good on paper, but we've got to see what the final product is, whether it all works out, and then we start making some noise and push for a playoff run or whatever it may be. But like for now, I feel good about it, but I'm still gonna wait and see before I say Tom Telesco is all this and all that. You know what I mean? Like I like what he's done, but we got to wait to see how it all shakes out.
I'm going to give you one more reason to feel good about it. When AP got the job, everything was about the Raiders' culture and the culture that they were building. And I know that John Gruden said the same things. It can be coach speak if it's not implemented. Didn't seem to be implemented with John Gruden. It was more of a podium thing. But AP put an emphasis on Raiders guys. And when you look up and down this draft, they all seem to fit the mold of Raiders guys. They're dogs on the field. They come from like good stock, things like that. You look at what happened in New England. They went and they took Drake May and then Hilton from Tennessee. There's already controversy in that building. They didn't draft for culture, right? There wasn't a Patriots guy that they went and got. Every single guy that Tom Telesco drafted, and I know that Patrick Graham and AP and Luke Getsy were all involved in everything that he did, because you can tell they all fit the system. They all fit the Raiders vibe. And I think that is going to be what carries this draft class over into a quality one. And in 3 years, I think we're going to see the dividends from that.
Yeah, they're all big, tough guys who love football more than anything else. And that's Antonio Pierce's thing, is you got to love this. You got to come into this building with a smile on your face, as he says, and love this. Now, let's not forget that in Antonio Pierce's tenure as Raiders coach last year, after he took over, he had a winning record with a rookie quarterback and a patchwork offensive line. What's he going to have now? He's got a much better team right now than he did at the end of last season.
Right, and just before, because I'm going to dip on out after this, just to that, like I was going to say before, like the fact that they addressed the offensive line, they did bring in what is touted to be the best playmaker in the draft at the skill position in Brock Bowers. I mean, they're giving, whether it's Minshew, whether it's Aiden O'Connell, or they're giving them the best. They're trying to put them in the best position to succeed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, you know, I mean, because I got to be honest, like with both those guys, they still need to prove to be the guy for the future. You know what I'm saying? For the long-term future, not just we're settling for him now. He's good enough for the now, but I want a guy we can just say, yes, he is our future. And they still have yet to prove it to me, but like, it seems like they're trying to put them in the best position to be able to prove if they are or they're not. But thanks for having me on, Rafa.
They could also be doing what the Chiefs are doing. When the Chiefs drafted Mahomes, they already had a really solid team. They just needed that one more piece to put him over the top, and that was an elite quarterback. The Raiders right now don't have an elite quarterback on their roster. They have adequate quarterbacks and a pretty good team around them. They just need that one more piece to put them over the top, and they can do what the 2017 Chiefs did.
Right. Well, let's see how it all shakes out, right? But I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on, Rafa. Biggs, Raider Damas. Nice to meet you guys. Like because I'm in Australia. I was up all day and all night last night till 6 a.m. Yeah. So it's now sleep. 11 a.m. I had 2 hours sleep because I had to take my dogs out, come back. I saw Rafa was live. I was doing some final editing before I go to bed. So that's what I'm going to do now. But I appreciate you guys. Happy draft weekend. And yeah, hopefully it all shakes out the way we all feel that it's going to. So.
Yep. Have a good one, Afakasi. So salute to you. And I just wanted to tell you that go ahead and subscribe to my brother Afakasi Raider, one of the members of the Raiders World Series. So thank you very much. And of course, happy drive weekend. So there you go.
All right, take it.
Let's do it again.
All right.
He's gone.
Okay. So there you go. All right. So right now, let's just see it for the three persons. So right now, I just wanted to say thank you, Afakasi, for coming off of this one. So right now, the last topic is going to be so much interesting because after the draft, right now, it's getting more interesting right now. So after the draft, we'll see what happens right now. So there it is. Aiden O'Connor or Gardner Minshew, or people might know as the Uncle Rico or Matt Crosby tell about for this one. There you go, Lil Ass Boy. So right now, I just wanted to have another question about who has the battle for the quarterback starter. So I'm going to tell you about this. So this is going to be so really interesting. So right now the question is, who has to battle as the starter for the quarterback for this season? It's going to be Aiden O'Connor, as known as AOC, or Gardner Minshew, or people know as the Uncle Rico, Lil Ass Boy. So right now, let's just start with Biggs and Raider Demis. Who got the job as the starter quarterback? Because right now, after the draft, it's going to be like an intense battle who got the starter job position for the quarterback.
So I'm going to call it, it's Aiden O'Connell's job to lose. Aiden O'Connell is a more efficient passer than Gardner Minshew. Aiden O'Connell has a better deep ball than Gardner Minshew. Aiden O'Connell has half a season as the incumbent starter in Las Vegas. Gardner Minshew is a good backup. He's always been a good backup. If something happens to Aiden O'Connell, I feel safe that Gardner Minshew can step in. But it's Aiden O'Connell's job, period.
All right,
I have a slightly different take on it. I think Gardner Minshew showed last year he very nearly dragged a below-average Indianapolis Colts team to the playoffs and came within a game of doing so. Now, Aiden O'Connell did more or less the same thing for the Raiders. I just think, having watched both of them in their careers, Gardner Minshew not only has more experience, I think he has a higher ceiling of more explosive play than O'Connell, but he also has a much lower floor. He can make big, costly mistakes at any time, and I think Aiden O'Connell doesn't have quite the potential for explosive plays that Minshew does, but he's also not going to make the same amount of mistakes. I think he's more steady. So it really just depends on how good is the rest of the team, how risk-averse do the Raiders want to be. I suspect that Minshew wins the job out of camp, but knowing how he plays and how risky his style is, I'm not sure if he keeps it the entire season. I think Minshew will win the job and then eventually lose it to O'Connell, and the Raiders will be in exactly the same spot in this draft, in next year's draft as they are now, looking at a quarterback in the first round. However, this time, I think in the 2025 draft, we're going to see a lot of the same bad teams as we saw this year, only a lot of the same bad teams will have rookie quarterbacks and won't be looking for one again. So I think the Raiders may just have the pick of the litter next time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of the difference right now because between Aiden O'Connor or Gardner Minshew, I mean, man, what can I tell about this? Because I know he's still on his rookie contract for one more year. So the next season is going to be probably $6 million. I mean, he could be like a smart quarterback who can read the field, but he may throw some late routes develop, but he has very limited athleticism and lacks top tier. But he also has a lot of flaws and about that. But the battle between Aiden O'Connor versus Gardner Minshew, I mean, that was just like very crazy because after the game against Indianapolis Colts, right now they're just giving it to us because that's crazy to talk about who overtook an offense that is conductor who ran it over to get fired. That was just like with a quarterback that was absolutely awful, but I think it's gonna be like a part of a sort of job and it can do for the position, but may or may not the starter but disappoint because they're gonna be like a lot of mess that happened last season because he did really good enough to give him like a chance to be like the starter. But I think it kind of this about the level of disappointment or appointment, but I really expect it because right now it just seems like how did it gonna be special? Because if they gotta just say 100% they gotta choosing the guy, will give it like the best chance to win. I mean, he's not going to do like BS or something because he doesn't own any. I didn't do anything, but I hope it's gonna shred all the doubters between for the off season. But I think it's more getting interesting because Gardner Minshew is more like mobile, more decent, but then rather than someone had to turn about ball over. But after the whole situation on Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, we just got a Gardner Minshew, which is very decent, but he also has got a like very back up. But of course, he has a very false start, but he had to deserve like the full preseason and can't compete. I mean, Minshew is just like a career backup. If he wants to be started somewhere, but it doesn't mean he's just like he's not like a bad pickup, but also I can really trust it about AOC because he didn't win, but certainly he didn't lose. But the defense, they're going to need about it. So, I mean, he had to learn not to lose games, but also he had to learn about a great defense. It is okay to lean on them. We might understand with the quarterback position this year, but if the quarterback doesn't fall to us, and that's what I really hate because we had to continue to build the dam that we're going to play for. And that's not a matter of fact because that's the first time we didn't draft a quarterback on this draft. We just drafted all the defense, but no quarterback. I mean, that's strange.
I mean, the thing about AOC is that he was in a game last year where he scored over, or his team scored over 60 points. And that's really, really rare. But he was also in a game where his team lost 3-0, which is also similarly rare. So we have seen, I think we've seen Gardner Minshew's ceiling. I think we've seen him as good as he can get. But AOC was a rookie last year.
Yeah.
I don't think his development is by any means done. I don't think we've seen his ceiling. We don't really know how good he can be. What if he comes into camp this year and he's amazing? And Gardner Minshew is the backup, and we don't need to draft a quarterback next year. That would be, the best of all possible worlds for the Raiders.
There are Hall of Famers with rookie seasons that were 1-15 or 2-14. Troy Aikman.
I can name 3 right now.
Yeah. So on top of the fact that those seasons had continuity in Dallas and Indianapolis, there wasn't Terry Bradshaw. There wasn't continuity in Las Vegas last year. Aiden O'Connell went through the ups and downs of getting the starting job, having it taken away from him, getting it back, having one head coach, having another head coach, dealing with different offensive coordinators. He went through a lot. This year, he's going to have continuity. He's going to have a full offseason to work with Lou Getsy and get the scheme down. He's going to have a full season under AP. He's going to have he has worked with Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers and Michael Mayer and Trey Tucker in the past. He had 4 games at the end of last season with Zamir White. He's in a much different place now than he was last year. He was already old. He had a lot of reps at Purdue. So that was one of the reasons that when you watched him, he was so very poised, unflappable. He never looked like the moment was too big for him. It didn't matter if they were up by 60 or down, having scored 0 points. Aiden O'Connell was no ups and downs. He was flat the whole way through. That kind of poise is what makes a winning quarterback in the NFL. Yes, he doesn't scramble, but they just added offensive line pieces. They just added another weapon. All he has to do is cut down on mistakes, avoid mistakes, and get the ball into the hands of his playmakers. Devontae Adams is an incredible route runner and gets himself open. He's a separation god. Brock Bowers is a yak god. Jacoby Myers is a great slot receiver. I used hyperbole the other night in the live draft show and said that he was one of the greatest slot receivers ever and got completely crapped on for it. I wasn't far off from the truth. He had a couple seasons where his efficiency as a slot receiver was better than just about anybody in the league. He just wasn't scoring touchdowns. And these were all fantasy people, so it was a little bit different. Jacoby Myers is a quality wide receiver. Trey Tucker had some deep routes last year that Aiden O'Connell put dimes in his hands. That kind of offense is going to benefit Aiden O'Connell. There are weapons all over the field. Zamir White is going to be a 20 rush back, and he's going to do well with it. The Raiders' offense is in a good place. On top of that, you have the enhanced defensive play from the second half of the season under AP, and Patrick Graham able to cook. That's going to help Aiden O'Connell as well. And what did we do with the defense? We went and signed Christian Wilkins, who's going to set Max Crosby free, and we added a ton of depth to our defensive backfield and a backup run-stopping linebacker who takes pressure off of Robert Spillane. We have improved this team from the day that Josh McDaniels left every step of the way, and Aiden O'Connell is going to be the benefactor of that.
I want to point out about AOC one more thing. He started his career at Purdue as the 6th string quarterback. He moved up step by step by step. He got better every single year he was at Purdue than he was the year before. There's nobody who can say, I know how good Aiden O'Connell is going to be in 3, 4, 5 years from now. You don't know, because he keeps getting better every single year. The sky is the limit for this guy. He's not the most athletic guy in the world. He doesn't scramble, but he is pretty accurate. He's got a good deep ball, and he can fit into the system as well as anybody. Much better than Justin Fields did, for sure. I think he has a pretty good chance to be the starter, at least for the majority of next season. And then the Raiders are going to have a choice to make, because the next 2 quarterback classes, who knows? I know the 1-2 years from now is going to be pretty darn good, and next year could be good as well.
I just thought of 5 quarterbacks right off the top of my head, 3 of them Hall of Famers, 2 of them having had over 4,000 yards passing in a season that are not mobile quarterbacks. Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, who was the other one? Tom Brady, Derek Carr, and Jared Goff. Derek Carr and Jared Goff don't move. They've won. They've been playoff quarterbacks. They've had seasons over 4,000 yards. They've had 30 touchdown seasons. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Joe Montana, not mobile. They were Hall of Famers. It's not necessary to have a Justin Fields who's not very good at throwing the ball, but can scramble or create plays or whatever. It's not necessary to win. As long as you get the ball in the hands of the guys who can make plays. The quarterback doesn't have to be a playmaker.
That's true to an extent. The only caveat to that is that I think defensive ends and edge rushers in this league have gotten a lot better over the last 10 years, and offensive tackles haven't. So I think you kind of need to have a quarterback with at least some scrambling ability just to avoid the absolute monsters that are on the other side of him.
Yeah, exactly. And I really thought it was gonna be like a starting job, but you really think that was something like, wow, it's gonna be like an exciting battle between who got the job at the starter, which is Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connor. For me, I will take Aiden O'Connor because he deserves like it a lot. I mean, even though he has a lot of star flaws, I mean, he's starting to improve a lot of more of the speed, intensity, and all these stuffs. But I guarantee that AOC could definitely start the job, and then Gardner Minshew that's gonna because he's very good, but he's very good as a backup. So right now there's gonna be what are those takes that are talking about. So I just wanted to say, ladies and gentlemen, that's here for today because we're about to go to sleep right now because it's been like an amazing week, madness, wildest week of NFL draft because there'll be like a lot of surprises, upsets, and of course the wildest reactions with a lot of fans. But right now, we just see like the best of the best available because right now this year they didn't screw it up because we just got the best center available. We just got Brock Bowers. We just got a speed demon from Mississippi State, which is amazing. So I just wanted to tell you, thank you guys for joining us for this special episode, the post-draft post, Silver and Black Experience. So right now, Biggs, Damas, thank you very much. So where can we find you on the social media? And of course, because I'm just like a great fan of the Undroppables, which is Las Vegas Raiders on Rivals. So every time that I just went on the chat and do my point of view, so bam, there you goes.
Find me on Twitter at BigBonedFFB. Everything that I do, if you want some fantasy stuff, I've got a bunch of different fantasy shows and Raiders content over at the Undroppables YouTube channel. Our Uncovered series is all individual team content creators. Raider Damas and I are the de facto permanent hosts of the Uncovered show that we do on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. That's all live streamed. So go ahead and watch us for that. And if you want anything more, at BigBonedFFB on Twitter.
You can find me on Twitter at Raider Damas, and you can find my articles during the season every weekend at TheRaiderRamble.com. And I'd just like to say that the Raiders preseason games are going to be must-see TV this year, just because of all the really good, exciting young players the Raiders have, and also the quarterback battle that they're going to be undertaking during the preseason and during practice. You don't want to miss any Raiders preseason game this year. It's going to be absolutely compelling.
Well, the bottom line with the quarterback thing is that until Antonio Pierce comes out and says player A is the starting quarterback, or until preseason week 3, we're not going to know anything. So it's up to the fates.
It's going to be fascinating stuff, really.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to tell you, I really appreciate about that, guys. And of course, we're just getting out of here. And this has been like an amazing episode, a special episode of the post-draft thoughts about for the Raiders draft class of 2024. So that concludes for another episode of Silver and Black Experience. I appreciate it about for the chat right now. I just wanted to say shout out to my brother Afakasa Raider to putting up and of course telling about for the thoughts. Also shout out to the chat right now. Not only we just live on Twitter, Instagram, but also on YouTube. So much love to Raider Bob. Ray Love also we just got Dark in the building. Daniel Barris in the building. Also we just see like MC Raider, Afakasi, Anacari Moreno, Alcides. Also this Bear Raider, Armando. I mean, there's a lot of love in this chat right now. So what can I tell about this? So yeah. And of course, hit the like button, subscribe, and of course, I'm almost there on 1K subscribers. So you don't want to miss it.
Share the video around. Hashtag Raider Nation. Let's go.
All right.
There you go, all right, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm on my way to 1K subscribers. So hit the like button, subscribe, and of course, ring the bell for the notifications. This is Ralph in the building. Raiders Nation, stand up, like Antonio Pierce say. And right now, we're out of here with another special episode of Simeon Black Experience. So right now, it is time to say goodbye. And of course, just like Al Davis say, just win, baby. And we're out.